Hey, welcome to my video on the 10 baby steps to preparedness. I'm making this video for all those people out there who are just overwhelmed by this process, right? Maybe you're new to survival and preparedness. You've never taken your first step. You're not sure where to start. Or maybe you've done this for a while, but you're not certain that you're got everything in place that you need to. Maybe you went off on a tangent where you were working on some food items and then you went over here to your bug out bag and you're kind of like, hey, I've started, but do I have everything covered? So this is the kind of the 10 baby steps to where you can say, okay, I've got my bases covered. And then from there, you're ready to go to more advanced survival and preparedness techniques and to what I like to call live a more resilient life, where you're prepared for disasters, you're prepared for the unknown future. That's where you want to be. And so if this sounds like something that you could definitely use, then stick with me. We're going to go through these 10 items. I'm going to share my thoughts on each one. I think that you'll be surprised and you'll learn some things along the way. Even if you think you know it all when it comes to survival and preparedness, there's always opportunities to learn things. And I think I'm going to share a few things that will surprise you along the way. And if you stick to the end of this video, we'll go ahead and provide you a PDF in your email that details not only all these action steps and even more information related to these action steps, but the gear I recommend if there happens to be a piece of gear that goes along with this or a vendor that happens to go along with this. That's not my priority today. My priority today is not to sell anything. My priority today is to educate you and help you take meaningful action that can help you sleep a little better at night and can help you be more prepared and live a little bit more of a resilient life. So let's get started. Let's jump right in. So the first one here says last resort warmth tool. Now, this one can be a little tricky because I get a little pushback every once in a while from some people saying, really, that doesn't seem like all that important. It doesn't protect me from starving. It doesn't protect me from dying of dehydration. But here's what it does protect you from. It protects you from one of the highest priority items for survival in certain situations, okay? You can freeze to death faster than you will die of thirst if you're in a blizzard or if it's really cold out or you're dealing with a hypothermic situation. Now, if you happen to live in the tropics, if you live in Hawaii or you live near the equator, you could probably skip that one, okay? You're not going to likely be in a scenario where you're in below freezing temps for very long, just due to the nature of where you live. But for the rest of us, if you live anywhere where it can drop down to cold weather every once in a while, you should put some kind of emergency survival blanket in your glove box, okay? These are small tools that are about the size of my fist, and you pull them out and they unravel, and they're like sleeping bags, but they're really thin and light. So the reason they're thin and light is because they're made of something called mylar. And mylar was developed by NASA, and it's a thin material that does not allow for transfer of heat or air. And so the important thing here is you wrap yourself in these blankets or in these sleeping bags made of mylar, and it traps your heat in, okay? So if you're ever stuck in a blizzard, or let's say the power goes out and you don't have a backup heat source in your home, you don't have a wood stove, you don't have a generator, okay? Grab those tack bivvies, grab those emergency blankets, wrap yourself in them, throw some blankets over the top, and you will be more likely to survive even in below zero temps for multiple days, okay? So it's an easy tool to acquire. It's simple to use. So that's why I like to call that my number one thing for the baby steps in survival and preparedness, okay? Moving on to number 2 weeks of water, okay? Why 2 weeks? Why not more? Why not less? 2 weeks of water is going to take care of most issues that we come across. Most emergency situations are going to last much less than 2 weeks unless it's really dire. So you're going to cover most bases, and 2 weeks is attainable, okay? It's meaningful and it's obtainable. And that's the two things I like to focus on when it comes to baby steps and getting started, okay? And there's a lot of different ways you can store water. I mean, I've written posts and I've done videos on water storage over and over again. If you get that PDF, you'll see some links to the way I chose to solve that problem. Some articles that help you look at all your options. So spend a little time doing that. But at the end of the day, you just got to get 2 weeks worth of water in your basement somewhere. Now, one thing people say is, how do I know how much that is? Well, some people use half a gallon per person per day. I don't think that's enough, okay? I like to go with 1 gallon per person per day. And yes, that's a little more water when you calculate it out, but people tend to forget that you need water for cooking, to boil, especially if you have freeze-dried food and you're trying to reconstitute that. Normally you boil water. So you're using water every day to do that. Also for sanitary purposes. When you're dirty and you need to clean some things up, you need some water on hand to help with that, okay? So I like to go with 1 gallon per person per day because I'd rather have a little more than I need than not enough, okay? Number 3 here is 2 weeks of food. Same idea. It's doable within a reasonable amount of time, but it's enough to provide a bit of a runway in an emergency, right? So the way I like to do this is I have a graph, a chart, a table that you can use to determine how many calories you consume roughly by age, by gender, and by activity level. So if you're somebody who has a lot of activity going on in their lives, maybe you have a higher metabolism in general, and you're a male in your 30s or 40s or 50s, you use this chart to figure out what that daily average calorie need is. And then you just take your whole family, and you add each one up, and then you multiply that by 14, because 2 weeks would be about 14 days, and you get a calorie number. And then once you have the number of calories, your goal calories for 2 weeks, then you go out and you find either a reputable vendor that either I recommend, or maybe you stumble across a deal that makes sense, or you do it yourself. You go to the grocery store, you get some rice, you get some beans, you get all the basics that will last a really long time in your basement or in wherever you plan to storage this stuff in your pantry. But the bottom line is, whatever it takes, get 2 weeks of food and water. You'll sleep better at night. You'll know you got some calories that you can survive off of. And don't forget to include your pets. That goes for water as well, okay? If you got a pet as a member of the family, then you might want to think about adding just a little bit extra for them as well. You don't want to get in a situation where, it's a dire situation when you have to think about pets and their survival. So we love our pets, so make sure you add them to all of your preparedness plans. The next up is very related to this. So if you go with freeze-dried food or you go with rice, how are you going to cook it? In many emergency situations, you're not going to have natural gas. Okay, that's a possibility that gets shut off. You're not going to have electricity. So how are you going to use your traditional stoves? How are you going to use your traditional gas stoves and ovens? So you need backup plans for that. I like to use a rocket stove, okay? The reason I like a rocket stove, it's a small portable stove that pulls air through the bottom and shoots the flame up out the top, and you put a pot on top. And the reason I like it is because it's so efficient. It uses a tiny amount of wood compared to like a backyard grill or a barbecue. It uses a small amount of wood to boil water and to cook your food. So you don't have to have as much fuel, firewood in this case, as you would if you used other methods to try and cook your food over like a traditional campfire, per se. So it's super efficient. It creates less smoke, which is always helpful if you're trying to cook your food discreetly. You don't want your neighbors to know you have food. If they happen to be without food, you'd rather maybe keep that a secret. So I think a rocket stove is a really good use, and also a sun oven. Okay. Another option would be to get a sun oven where they use the solar rays from the sun, and you move this thing throughout the day and it cooks it just like an oven. So you can put together some kind of pot roasts and things like that and cook it using the power of the sun. So you wouldn't need gas or electricity, obviously. Number 5 is a hand crank radio. Okay. You never want to be in a position where you're relying on the internet or you're relying on TV stations and things like that to get your crisis intelligence, okay? Number one, they all depend on electricity to operate in some form. Whereas a hand crank radio, you take this radio, you crank it up, and it generates its own power, right? It has a battery, and you crank it, and you crank it for 2, 3, 5 minutes, whatever, and you get that thing charged up, and then you have AM, FM radio, and I recommend you get one with weather as well, the weather bands. That way, if you're hunkered down, You have no means of communication from the outside world. You get your hand crank radio and you get to tune into what's happening, okay? Intelligence can make the difference between making a good decision or a bad decision. Should you bug out? Where's the wildfire at? Is there a riot somewhere? Where is the riot? So all this intelligence in a major crisis can usually be broadcast over airwaves, okay? So you want to make sure you have a hand crank radio on hand at all times. Next is basic defense measures. Now, I lump personal self-defense and home defense into that category, and I just want to see people take some really basic measures there. So let's start with personal defense. Now, if you've taken some personal self-defense courses, great. I think that's amazing. But as far as basic baby steps goes, I just want to see people with something they can use to defend themselves that's cheap and easy to use, okay? And that comes down to pepper spray, right? You don't need to take a course. You don't need to get a certificate. Anybody can buy this stuff. You basically uncap it and you spray it into an attacker's face and eyes. And if it's good enough stuff, if it's potent, it will knock them down. It will back them off. And it's easy to use. So again, I also like whistles, if somebody's attacking you and you're hitting a whistle and you're blowing pepper spray, you're not an easy target, right? That's called target hardening. And obviously, there's more ways to target harden. You can carry a self-defense weapon, a firearm, if you will, but that's more advanced, okay? That's something you can look to do in the future down the road if you want to take it to the next level. But for this basic 10 baby steps, it's going to be a pepper spray. And then as far as a home defense goes, deadbolts on every exit, entrance and exit point. You want deadbolts. I also highly recommend some kind of alarm system. So nowadays, there's incredible options as far as alarms go. I chose something called Abode, which is just entrance point alarm system. It goes to my phone. It says, hey, this door open, this door closed. If I leave, it knows when my phones are gone and it alarms it and arms it. And then if somebody enters, my phone goes off and I would know and I can call the police or whatnot. And there's advanced features with that security system. It does take a little bit of an investment to buy, but here's the nice thing. If you're a renter, you can take that with you, okay? That system's not permanently wired into your house. It's all through the Wi-Fi and the internet. Another thing I like is motion sensors on the outside of your home, especially at the most vulnerable locations, okay? So your entrance points, or if you have a spot on your backyard where there's a ground window that would be easily accessible to somebody who was trying to break in. You could also look at upgrading those specific windows to security glass type coatings. You can add these sheets of coating that turn a regular window into a much more difficult window to bash in. It'll shatterproof, make it shatterproof, so that it would take much longer and a lot more noise for somebody to break into that home. Okay, so those are just some basic home defense, home fortification tips that you can take. But you need to do something, right? If you don't have deadbolts and you don't have any kind of alarm system, you don't have any lighting, you're just going to be vulnerable if people are trying to break into your home or see your home as a potential opportunity in a survival or a doomsday type scenario. Okay, next up, number 7, you need to have some basic medical supplies on hand. Okay, I mean, most people do. If you don't, then you're behind the times. You need to get some first aid kits, some really simple basic first aid kits. Again, we have some recommended products. It'll be in the PDF if you want, but you need to have some basic stuff on hand, because in a crisis where you can't go to the hospital and there's no doctors available, they're at home taking care of their own needs, you're going to be on your own and you can't wait, okay? And so to go with that medical supplies, you got to have some knowledge to use it, okay? This is the best book I recommend. I mean, there's other products on the market, but this is the Survival Medical Handbook. It is thick. And it's basically, it says the essential guide for when medical help is not on the way, okay? So it's got sutures, it's got transportation materials, it's got, altitude sickness, it's got suturing, it's got snake bites, it's got everything in this thing, okay? And so in a crisis where you're like, what is this? How do I handle this? How do I sew this person up? You're going to have something like this. And there's a lot of stuff on the internet you could buy, like on a Kindle, but you can't rely on that during a crisis to be able to access the power to turn on those machines. You need something physical like this. You put it in your shelf, you put it in your, I call it your survival library, and then you got it. Okay, so this is a really good purchase for 10 baby steps. All right, next up on the list is gas masks and filters. So a lot of people think that gas masks and filters are more of an advanced survival and preparedness piece of gear, and I tend to disagree. I think that a gas mask is so important because if you're breathing in toxic air, not only could you die immediately if the air is truly toxic, such as you're breathing in wildfire smoke or you're breathing in a pandemic type, disease. You could be dead within minutes with wildfire smoke, but you could be dead within days with a deadly pandemic. So, we're talking nuclear fallout, we're talking chemical attacks, we're talking volcanic ash if there happened to be a super volcanic explosion. There's so many reasons why you may need a gas mask. And here's the deal. Once the event happens, you're not going to be able to get it. When the COVID-19 pandemic first happened in March and April, you go to get a gas mask and you are waiting at least 3-4 months to get it. I'm sorry, that's too late. You need to have it in your home with you, available, so that you can put this thing on. You can go out outside and breathe air and know that you're going to be safe. If the COVID-19 pandemic was even worse, not saying it wasn't bad, but if it was worse, if the mortality rate was even worse, if you breathe this stuff, boom, you're dead, or your kids are dead, or what have you, and we were all even more freaked out than we already were, you can believe everybody who has a gas mask would be wearing it to the grocery store and anytime they left the house, okay? So that just gives you an idea of how important a gas mask could be in certain scenarios. Okay, so I think every household should own at least one, so that one adult could leave the house safely and come back with supplies or what have you. Ideally, every member of the household would own one. Okay, it gets a little pricey when you start thinking of it that way, but they do make kid-sized gas masks and filters, and they do make infant-sized, and even make them for pets, where they have kind of an enclosure, and the pet goes inside, and then the air inside is filtered. That's up to you if you want to take it to that level, but I want to see with this basic baby step preparedness, I want one per family at a minimum. Okay, next up is build a basic bug out bag. Now, again, sometimes I get pushback on this one. Hey, Jack, I'm not bugging out. There's no way I'm going to go live out in the woods, with a bag on my back, living a nomadic life. I get it. Most people would survive a week that way. Trust me. There's people who go backpacking. There's people who go hunting for weeks, and they struggle even for a few days. I mean, it's a rough life. It's not a way that I think most people could survive and thrive. But let me ask you this. If you were forced to evacuate due to either a wildfire, or let's say there was a natural gas leak in your neighborhood and they're like, hey, you got to leave, you got to get out of here. You want a bag you can grab and go out the door, and you know that bag of supplies is yours. Okay, it's got some food, it's got a knife, it's got water filters, it's got some basic masks, some face masks. It just has your supplies. It's got things that are important to you to survive. You don't want to be in a position where you are forced to leave your home for whatever reason, and you have to rely on handouts. Okay. Now, if there are handouts, if there are help available, take it. Of course, take it if it's available. But you don't want that to be your plan. That's a bad plan. You want to be able to grab your bag, throw it in your truck, throw it in your car, put it on your back, and get the heck out of Dodge for a couple days. And if you end up at a shelter because of a hurricane, you want a bag of supplies that's your bag of supplies, right? You don't want to just 100% depend on others. Okay, and that's what a bug out bag is. And a lot of people don't understand that. They think when they hear bug out bag, they think, boom, I'm going to the woods with this thing. And that's just not true. I think everybody should have a bag of supplies in case they're forced to evacuate, no matter what the circumstances. And finally, I think everyone needs to join a survival coalition. Okay, you can do all these steps, but who's going to hold you accountable? Who's going to help you when you have a question? Who's going to kick you in the butt and tell you you're not doing enough? You need to keep moving, right? You need a mentor. You need a group of people that care about you in a way that gets you motivated and excited to take the next step. And that's why I created something called the Resilient Life. Okay. It is a coalition for people just like you who are watching this video, who are trying to figure out how to become a resilient person, somebody who is confident that they have some supplies when things go south, who's confident and knows that they have what they need to survive for 2 weeks. And then at some point, if you join this coalition, hopefully you'll get to a point where you're considered part of the resilient few. Okay. So I think there's two types of people in the world. There's those who love luxury and comfort and handouts, and they're not big on taking accountability for their own actions. I like to call those people the fragile masses, okay? Our society has breeded kind of comfort and luxury and the easy way to live, and that the grocery stores are always going to be available. The water taps are always going to run. The stove's always going to turn on. And by assuming those things are always available, you're part of the fragile masses. You're very fragile to any kind of upset events that happen in this world. I don't want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of the resilient few. And if you're watching this video, I think you do too. And so you're a perfect candidate to join this survival coalition called the Resilient Life. And it's more than just information. What's really neat about the Resilient Life, and I think you'll love about it, is that it's based on a system of taking action. So as you take actions and you meet these requirements to try to earn these badges, you actually make meaningful progress to becoming more resilient. And not only that, but every time you click a button and say, yes, I completed this action, you get a point. And we like to call this the readiness score. So we'll keep track of this point online, this point system, and you'll go from 1 point to 5 points. If you finish all of these, you're going to end up with 10 points right away, okay? And then you get up to 50 points or 100 points. You can get up to 200 points. And depending on how many points you have, how many readiness score points you have, will determine whether you're part of the fragile masses, if you only have a couple points, or if you get 50, 60, 80 points, you're going to become part of the resilient few, okay? And for those who choose to, you can share. We have a Facebook group that we use to help share how our progress is going. Some people choose to use the Facebook group. Some people choose to just check it out but not really participate. But either way, it's amazing the amount of things people are sharing on this. People are sharing their bug out plans. People are sharing their gardening skills and their canning skills and why they chose to do it this way versus that way. People are sharing their water storage plans, details, extreme details about which kind of containers they're using and how much they're storing and where they're storing it and why they're doing this and how they're doing that. And other people are commenting and saying, awesome job, keep it up. It's a true community of people helping each other who are like-minded, okay? The biggest thing about a survival coalition is it needs to have two things, okay? First of all, it needs to have people you trust. Okay. And that means people that are like-minded, people who don't espouse to being fragile. They just don't want to be that way, either never or they don't want to be that way anymore. And number two, they need to be people who pull their own weight to contribute to the community in some way, right? If people don't meet those two criteria, you don't want them as a part of your group because they're going to become a liability. Okay. And so we don't want those types of people as a part of this coalition, and you don't want that type of person as part of any coalition you're involved. So if you have a neighborhood coalition of people that are like-minded, there's going to be people who are engineers and electricians and plumbers, and those are people that have skills. And if you can trust them, if you can kind of form a mutual bond and know that, hey, if things go south, Jim or Tim or Susan or Karen or whoever, they can all come together as a group during this time and share resources and share skills and share knowledge and work together to get through it, okay? That's awesome. Not all of us have that opportunity. But online, in this resilient life, we can help you become more resilient as a community. We can help you become a part of this coalition. And here's the best part about it, okay? I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, yeah, but I don't want to pay another monthly fee to be a part of another survival membership or whatever. We are a one-time fee. You pay a one-time reasonable fee and you are in this membership for life, okay? Whether you choose to do this wholeheartedly for like 6 months and go crazy and then take a break and then maybe come back later, that's up to you. I think it's a membership that you'll want to partake in for months and years and years. And this is a multi-year process. Like, obviously I want to see you get as prepared as possible, as fast as possible, but budgets and timelines can restrict how quickly we can get this done. But your one-time fee, your one-time cost will get you into this coalition for life. And any updates or any upgrades that we add to it, you're good to go, okay? So we don't want a membership where you regret doing it and then 2-3 months later you look at your bill and statement and go, oh, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. So you call them up and it's a pain in the butt to try and get out of it, and you're calling your bank to charge back the money. None of that stuff, okay? We want to provide extreme value at a reasonable price and want you to become a member of our coalition called The Resilient Life, okay? So since you've made it this far into the video, I know you're interested in this, okay? We have a special deal. Click the button below, and if you buy today, you're going to get the best deal we can give. The best deal we can give to keep this coalition growing, to keep people invested and keep people involved. It's going to be the best deal you're going to see, okay? If you get emails later about, hey, maybe you're on the fence and you're not sure and you wait a few days, the deal's not going to be as good. It's just the way it is, If we can convince you to join us today, we're going to give you the best deal possible. After that, you're going to miss out and it's going to cost you a little more. Still think you're going to love it no matter what. If you were on the fence, fine. I get it. Sometimes you want to make sure, what you're buying is worth it and all those things. But if you take action today, I promise you, get the best deal you can get. So I'm excited to get in there with you. I'm excited to answer all of your questions. And that's another thing about the Resilient Life is each month we have a Q&A session where I hop on a Zoom call, I hop on a call, and anybody can join and ask any questions. I'm going to answer things the best I can. I'm not perfect. I don't know it all, but I'll do my best to answer the questions based on my knowledge and experience. I'll let other people join in and provide answers that if they know something more about self-defense than I do, boom, please share. And so it's a community sharing opportunity. And if people just want to share, maybe you don't have a question, maybe you just want to be like, hey, this is what I did and I just want everybody to hear about it. And I'm excited. I love it. Okay. You show up to these calls. We're going to try and get everybody time to talk and share. And so, man, it's the next best thing from having a true boots on the ground survival community, a survival coalition. If that's really challenging for you, and even if you are a part of a coalition, this is just going to make it even better. You're going to tell your buddies, hey, I joined this Resilient Life and this is what these guys are saying. And these are the things that some of these members are taking. And we should do that for our survival coalition as well. So it's a win-win, okay? So again, if you're still watching this video, I think this product is perfect for you. And I want to see you in there and I want to see you part of it. And I want to see you move your readiness score from 0 to 200, okay? Click the button below and we'll see you on the inside.